It was supposed to be a normal drive home. A few hours behind the wheel, some time to clear his head, and then a hug from his parents waiting at the door. But Bryce Laspisa never made it home. Instead, his car was found wrecked and abandoned at the bottom of a remote embankment in Castaic, California. There was no sign of him, no blood, no footprints, nothing. It was as if he had stepped out of the world and vanished into thin air. Bryce was just 19 years old. He had bright red hair, a wide smile, and the kind of personality that made people want to be around him. Born in Illinois to Karen and Michael Laspisa, he was their only child, deeply loved, protected, and supported. When the family moved to Laguna Niguel, California, Bryce adapted easily. He made friends quickly, excelled in art, and had a sense of humor that seemed to disarm anyone he met. He was creative, outgoing, and full of promise. After high school, Bryce enrolled at Sierra College in Rocklin, a few hours north of his hometown. He studied graphic and industrial design, an artistic path that combined his creativity with technical skill. His first year went smoothly. He thrived academically, developed close friendships, and started dating a fellow student named Kim Sly. By all accounts, he was happy and doing well. But when he returned for his sophomore year in August 2013, something changed. In the days leading up to his disappearance, Bryce's friends began noticing strange behavior. He was staying up all night, acting erratically, and seemed detached from everyone around him. He told Kim he wanted to take a break from their relationship. He gave away his prized belongings, including a pair of expensive diamond earrings and his video game console, saying he didn't need them anymore. When friends asked what was wrong, he'd simply shrug it off or smile in a way that made them even more uneasy. Bryce had also been drinking heavily. Some friends later reported that he'd been using Vyvanse, a stimulant prescribed for ADHD that he didn't have a prescription for. The drug can cause insomnia, agitation, and intense mood swings when abused. Combined with alcohol, the effects can be unpredictable and dangerous. On August 28, 2013, classes had barely begun for the semester. That night, Bryce's roommate Sean Dixon noticed that Bryce seemed unusually restless. He told Sean he planned to drive home to Laguna Niguel to talk with his parents. Concerned, Sean called Bryce's mom, Karen, to let her know. It was nearly midnight when she answered. She was surprised but not alarmed, until she realized how far away Bryce's college apartment was. It was a 6-hour drive. He'd have to drive through the night. Karen told him to wait until morning. Bryce agreed, or at least that's what he said. But instead of sleeping, Bryce got into his car, a beige 2003 Toyota Highlander, and started driving south through the dark California night. At around 11:30 p.m. he called his mom again. He sounded strange. His words were slow, almost monotone. Karen asked if he was tired, but Bryce said no, he just wanted to talk. They spoke for a few minutes, then hung up. Karen assumed he'd sleep a bit before heading out, but Bryce didn't stop. He kept driving. By morning, the drive should have been halfway done, but when Karen checked her phone, there were no messages, no updates. Then, around 11 a.m. on August 29th, her phone rang. It was Bryce's insurance company calling on behalf of a roadside assistance worker named Christian, who was with Bryce in Buttonwillow, over 350 miles from his apartment, but still 2 hours north of Los Angeles. His car had run out of gas along Interstate 5. Christian had helped Bryce get fuel, but something about the situation felt off. Bryce didn't seem drunk or high, just off. He'd been sitting in the same spot for hours, since 9 a.m., even though his car was now filled and ready to go. Christian called Karen to check in, and when she spoke to Bryce, she asked him to continue driving home. He said he would. But hours later, when she still hadn't heard from him, she called Christian again. Astonished, Christian drove back out to the same spot, and found Bryce sitting in his car in the exact same place, engine off. It was now 3 p.m. He'd been there for nearly 6 hours. Karen spoke to Bryce again. She pleaded with him to just start driving. He promised her he would. And for a while it seemed like he did. He was spotted on surveillance cameras at a few highway exits, and his phone pings showed him moving south. But his behavior was strange. He'd stop for long periods, turn around, then continue again. It was as if he couldn't decide what he was running from or toward. At around 2 a.m. on August 30th, almost 24 hours after he left his apartment, Bryce called his mom one last time. He told her he was about 3 hours away, and that he was going to pull over and get some rest before completing the drive. Karen offered to stay on the phone, but Bryce told her not to worry. He said he'd see her in the morning. That was the last time anyone ever spoke to him. A few hours later, around 5 a.m., police received a report of a wrecked car near Castaic Lake, about 90 miles north of Los Angeles. The vehicle had gone down a steep embankment and crashed at the bottom near a service road. When officers arrived, they found that the car was Bryce's Toyota Highlander. The back window was broken out, but it seemed to have been pushed from the inside. His phone, wallet, and laptop were still in the car. The keys were gone. But there was no Bryce. Police searched the area immediately, fearing he'd been thrown from the car or wandered off injured. Bloodhounds traced his scent from the car up to the nearby access road, and then along a trail heading toward a nearby truck stop. But after about a mile, the scent stopped completely. No footprints, no clothing, nothing. The search that followed was massive. Helicopters scanned the hillsides, divers searched Castaic Lake, officers combed through miles of brush and canyons. Nothing. It was as if Bryce had evaporated into thin air. His family arrived within hours and refused to leave. Karen and Michael spent days on the roadside, waiting for any sign of their son. As investigators pieced together the timeline, a disturbing picture emerged. In the hours before the crash, Bryce's phone records showed a series of bizarre, aimless movements. He'd driven back and forth between Buttonwillow and the Grapevine area several times. At one point, he sat idling on the side of the road for over an hour. He made multiple phone calls to his parents, but his tone shifted between calm and detached. It was as though he was struggling with something internal, something no one else could understand. Toxicology tests couldn't be performed since Bryce was never found, but friends later confirmed that he'd been using Vyvanse and drinking excessively in the days before he disappeared. His lack of sleep, stimulant use, and emotional turmoil could have caused severe paranoia or psychosis, but even if that were true, it didn't explain how he could vanish so completely from a visible, open area. Searchers found one more clue a few days later, footprints leading from the crash site to a cell tower hill near the lake. They matched the tread pattern of the shoes Bryce had been wearing, but again they led nowhere, just ended abruptly near the edge of the water. For weeks his parents stayed in the area. Flyers were printed, tips came in from across the state, sightings at gas stations, homeless shelters, even along the Pacific Coast Highway, but none were confirmed. Bryce seemed to have disappeared from both the landscape and from time itself. Years passed, theories multiplied. Some believed Bryce had suffered a psychotic break, possibly triggered by sleep deprivation and drug use, and wandered off into the wilderness to die. Others thought he might have intentionally disappeared, perhaps to start over somewhere far away. A few even speculated foul play, that he might have encountered someone after the crash, someone who made sure he was never found. But there was no evidence for any of it. In 2017, 4 years after he vanished, a set of human remains was found near Castaic Lake. For a brief moment there was hope, the possibility of closure, but DNA testing ruled it out. The remains were Bryce's. As of today, more than a decade later, Bryce Laspisa's disappearance remains one of California's most haunting unsolved cases. No physical evidence has surfaced, no confirmed sightings, no conclusive explanation. His parents still live in the same house in Laguna Niguel, holding onto the same phone number, hoping one day Bryce might call. His mother once said, "Every time the phone rings, part of me still thinks it could be him." The mystery of Bryce Laspisa sits in that thin space between reality and nightmare. A young man full of potential, driving into the darkness, saying he'd be home soon, and then gone, completely gone. Maybe he was running from something. Maybe he was running towards something only he could see. Or maybe in that long, sleepless night, he simply lost his way in his mind, and then in the world. And somewhere out there, between Buttonwillow and Castaic Lake, the answer to what happened to Bryce Laspisa is still waiting to be found.